with Fluffy Hernandez taking on Sean Strickland. By the way, just a little bit of some disclosure. You see that fight poster behind you right there? That was me and Anthony Hernandez sharing a card together. Obviously, that night I got into it with his partner, his opponent. Blake Smead, that night. So very interesting stuff, and we got a lot to break down today with this whole full card analysis. First off, let me read a couple of comments from the last live stream. So let's read this right here. Okay, so I believe this is something to do with Ja Rule, obviously, because that was the other topic, topic matter at hand that I was talking about right there. The new Matt Clark, Canada Prison. Wow. Okay, very interesting name. I don't know if that's if he's a CEO or if he's a former inmate in Canada, but interesting name nonetheless. He says Ja stood his ground. They got him pulled off the plane, stopped the cap. Well, I gotta tell you, the new Matt Clark. I gotta tell you, man. I may have to agree with that, right? Which, by the way, what I'm about to say goes into the topic subject matter at hand that we are going to talk about with Fluffy Hernandez, right? Okay, so first and foremost, whenever you're the popular guy, you win the narrative almost every time. And this is regarding Ja Rule and that situation that he had going on with Tony Yayo in the plane, right? That is just the reality of the situation all the time. When you are the popular guy, usually it is you who is the one that's believed. It is you who has the narrative on your side. Okay, so whatever it is that you say, for example, Tony Yayo is going to say, yeah, well, Ja Rule purposely tried to get himself kicked off the plane. Okay, well, of course you're going to believe Tony Yayo, because Tony Yayo is affiliated with 50 Cent and G-Unit. And as a result of that, guess what, man? You're going to believe what he says because they have the winning narrative. Again, this kind of goes into this particular fight that we're talking about with Sean Strickland and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, right? Sean Strickland goes out there, dresses like an ICE officer, in a meme. I don't know if he purposely dressed it or if it was an AI or if he just edited out to make him look like an ICE agent or whatever, but it's a picture of him as an ICE agent and then Fluffy Hernandez as the suspect, right? Which, by the way, has some sort of racial undertones behind it. But being that MMA is primarily, I would say, a majority right-wing sport, at least in the fan base. At least in the fan base, MMA is a right-wing sport. And as a result of that, the fans in particular are the ones that are going to ride with whatever Sean has going on. Whereas in other parts of different sports, what Sean Strickland did, dressing up as an ICE agent in a meme picture, would absolutely look like a targeted effort on racial microaggression on his part, but not to the narrative of UFC fans. And that is the reality of Sean Strickland in terms of his fan base. And I gotta tell you, a lot of people are looking at this saying, you know what, Sean Strickland has a good chance of winning this fight, right? Because he's a former champion, but Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is a bad matchup for him. Okay, and we're going to get to that. Victory says, what's up, man? Shout out to you, my man. Had to get that little rambling going on before we get started. But yes, what's up, my man? Shout out to you. How you doing? Hope everything is good on your part. And also, going back to you, you wrote this on the comment section on the last live stream. You said, word on the street, Dustin is training at ATT. Okay, so, all right. We got something going on there. What does that mean? What does that mean that Dustin Poirier is training at ATT? Well, that could mean a Nate Diaz fight, right? Because Nate Diaz seems to be eager to get into the Whitehouse card. And at this point, who isn't eager to get into the Whitehouse card, right? So that has something to do with it, right? Dustin Poirier is in Florida training at ATT, and that's the word on the street. Well, that could mean a couple of things, right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean Nate Diaz, nor does it have to necessarily mean that it is a fight going on at all. Dustin could just be training for the sake of trying to better himself, trying to keep himself sharp, right? You never know. You're going to get into a street fight out there. You want to be sharp. You want to be ready. You don't want to end up like BJ Penn, where you have a bunch of randoms beat you up, and now not only did you ruin your legacy, you just ruined your whole entire reputation in the streets. So not a very good situation to be in. John Dong with the high emoji, 5-finger emoji. Hello, John Dong. Let me know what part of the world you are from, my man. Maybe John Dong. That sounds like a Vietnamese name. Or maybe you're just using that name as a way to create pun and, you know, create some sort of banter. But you never know. Victory says, yeah, but he lives in Louisiana and trains there. Gotcha. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, right? Sort of like with George St. Pierre back in the days when he trained at Greg Jackson, right? When George St. Pierre went to New Mexico, you knew for sure that this brother had a fight going on, okay? It wasn't no kidding around. And if he didn't have a fight, like most times of the year in his retirement right now, he would just go and train at TriStar, right? That is his main home gym. He would go train with Faraz. He would go train with Rory McDonald, even though Rory McDonald is also retired as well. He would go train with all the new guys that are in his camp. Who's in his camp right now that's a prominent fighter? Obviously, Arnold Allen is one that comes to mind. Victory says he only went to ATT when he had a fight signed. There you go, right? Very similar to George St. Pierre. Obviously, he's not just going to go and fly all the way to New Mexico for absolutely nothing because, let's be honest, there's really nothing in New Mexico, right? You might as well just travel a couple of miles up west towards California where everything is cracking over here. You know what I mean? So New Mexico is not exactly a tourist destination, unless, of course, you're a mixed martial arts fighter, or if you are part of the lowrider culture. Shout out to all the lowriders in New Mexico. Obviously, there's a big lowrider culture over there. So those would be the only reasons why you would go to New Mexico. John Dong says, I'm in Oklahoma. John Dong isn't my actual name. Genius. Gotcha. Okay. So obviously, John Dong is just a play on words for you to say, well, you know, I'm just a normal John Dong, or I don't even know if that sounds right. But on any regard, yes, that is what we got going on right now. Full card breakdown and a whole bunch of other things that we're going to talk about. Also, Ramadan 2026 will be starting tomorrow. Now, how about this, right? All the non-Muslim fighters are getting all their fights in just right during Ramadan and right before all the Muslim fighters come back in, let's say, March or April or something to that extent, right? You got Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway following up for UFC 326. By the way, where is that card located exactly? Where is UFC 326 located? Let me see if I can get to it before the chat does. So where is this fight? This is in Las Vegas. Okay, so it's a Las Vegas fight, and that's going to be in March 7th. Okay, so a Las Vegas card, March 7th. All right. A T-Mobile card makes sense. Before that, it is Moreno versus John Kavanaugh, and that, I believe, is next week. So this week is Hernandez and Strickland fight week, and then the week following that, it is Moreno versus Kavanaugh. More than likely, it's going to be in the Apex Center, and obviously, that card also involves Marlon Chito Vera taking on David Martinez, right? The upcoming David Martinez. How about this King Green, right? Taking on Daniel Zellhuber. By the way, this is not the Strickland card that I'm talking about right now. This is just the February 28th card that I'm talking about. He says, who would win between Prime Dillashaw or Sean O'Malley? Well, John Dong, I gotta tell you, man, you're actually asking the wrong guy for that particular question, right? In terms of if you wanted to really have an unbiased take, because if you haven't followed my channel for a while, I have had experience training with TJ Dillashaw, and people in the chat actually make fun of the situation, saying that I actually taught him his footwork, right? Which is absolutely ridiculous to that degree. But I do remember training with TJ Dillashaw where he was teaching wrestling classes, right? Showing us how to do ankle picks and things of that nature. So I'm going to be very biased on this, right? In my opinion, I truly believe that TJ Dillashaw is the greatest 135er of all time. Of all time. Of all time. That he is my top 135 pounder. Now, why would I say that? Well, for the same reason that, let's say if you were to come from Sheffield, England, right? And you would have asked somebody in Sheffield, England, who is your favorite boxer? Well, okay, Anthony Joshua comes to mind. Tyson Fury comes to mind. Prince Nassim comes to mind in this particular case, because guess what? Prince Nassim comes from none other than Sheffield, right? So TJ Dillashaw grew up in Santa Barbara. I got some homies down there. And then he trained up here in Sacramento. So he's a Sacramento guy. Obviously, he moved to Colorado with Dwayne Ludwig, but for me, the best TJ Dillashaw was the Sacramento TJ Dillashaw, in my opinion, greatest of all time. Now, that's subjective, especially if you're talking about two people that come from two different eras, right? I mean, they were sort of fighting at the same time, but they never got to it. They never got to it. Victory says if TJ didn't have that shoulder issue, he would have been he would have had the most bantamweight titles. I 100% agree with that, right? Obviously, that fight with Henry Cejudo was for a 125 belt, though, because I remember that really sucked TJ Dillashaw down. So obviously, yeah, he didn't do too good in that fight. Obviously, we're very early stoppage. So, all right. So, the 13 minutes into this live stream, let's get to the full card breakdown, and then we'll talk about a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Okay, we'll go 14 minutes on that one. Okay, so all right, let's get to the full card breakdown of this one. But yeah, I agree with you. If he had not had that shoulder injury, yeah, who knows what TJ Dillashaw would have been at this point of his career, or you know, in the latter stages of his career. So all right, let's get to it. Okay, so we're gonna start from the very top. Oh no, actually, you know what? We'll start from the very bottom. Okay, we'll start from the very bottom. All right, so the first fight, obviously, it's two fighters that have sort of a 50-50 record, right? Very young in their career, starting out. Miller versus Judas, 5-2 versus 5-3. Let's take a look at where 5-2 and 5-3 took them in their career. Okay. So Miller the Killer. Oh, it says here 4-3. So I don't know what's going on with this, right? It says 5-3 in Google, but Tapology has it 4-3. Very interesting. Okay. So this is an Invictus veteran, right, with 2 fights under the Invictus camp. Has a unanimous decision win in her last fight. Got knocked out the previous fight. Got beat by Veronica Hardy by unanimous decision. Not a very easy fight to go 3 rounds of Veronica Hardy. I mean, obviously, Veronica Hardy has her husband, Dan Hardy, who's a great coach, great technician, right? So let's take a look at Carly Judas. Where has her career been? 5-2. So 5-2. Maybe the 4-3 record. Maybe they made it 5-3 to kind of make her record look a lot better, right? Maybe they took an amateur fight. I'm talking about her opponent. I'm talking about Judas's opponent here, but AKA nicknamed Crispy Head Kicks MMA is her affiliation. 2 wins in the UFC so far, so she's undefeated in the UFC so far, right? She's got a head kick, she's got a ground and pound knockout, lost by split decision, but knocks people out in her previous fights. Wow, okay, 17 seconds in her pro debut. Okay, real interesting stuff. 17 seconds. Wow, okay, so I'm gonna go with her on this one, right? I think if there's, between these two fighters, if there is a propensity for a finish, I think that it will be Judas who is going to be the most capable of them two in terms of a finish here, right? So I'm going to have to go with Judas on this one, right? I'm not going to say decision. Yeah, I think she'll get a finish. I think she'll get a finish somewhere in the second round. Official prediction, we'll go with Carly Judas, second round TKO finish. Okay? So that is the official prediction for the first fight of the evening. Okay, so now let's get to the second fight of the evening. Okay, so what do we have on the second fight of the evening? We got Jordan Leavitt taking on an undefeated Yadir Del Valle. Okay, so Yadir Del Valle. Let's take a look at where Yadir Del Valle has been in his career so far, right? 10-0, very impressive record. So let's see where this one goes. Okay, so Yadir Alejandro Del Valle Hernandez. Okay, the Cuban problem. Let's see, so 10-0 in his record. Let's see here. Remember, this is a guy that was centered around the controversy with Isaac Dolgarian, right? Isaac Dolgarian has been cut from the UFC, okay, because of that performance where he looked like he just gave up, right? And that was back in November. So now, here he is against Jordan Leavitt, a guy who's not going to lay down easily, right? But before that controversy with Isaac Dolgarian, where has he been in his career? Well, let's take a look, right? Before that, he beat Connor Matthews, rear naked choke, gets a decision over Antonio Montero. Has fought in a contender series. Fury FC was the regional organization that he was a part of, unanimous decisions, a few finishes here. And then amateur bouts. Let's see how many amateur bouts has he had. Okay, so he's had quite an extensive amateur bout here. Rear naked choke, and then a decision. So a whole lot of submissions in the amateur ranks, right? Now, does he have a chance to submit Jordan Leavitt? Probably not, right? Let's take a look at where Jordan Leavitt has been in his career, right? The zesty Jordan Leavitt, right? But the zesty yet entertaining. The Monkey King is his name, right? I don't feel comfortable saying his nickname, just to be honest with you guys, just to be very transparent about it. But had a last win against Kurt Hollabaugh, and that was back in May, so last year or so, right? Loses by points. Okay, that was a karate combat. Wow, so he's fought in karate combat. How is he allowed to fight in karate combat? Okay, maybe he got cut, and then he fought in karate combat. But that's interesting that they allowed him to fight in karate combat. Okay, loses to it. Okay, that was grappling. Got it. Okay. He didn't actually compete in karate combat. It was actually a grappling competition. So he's lost to Chase Hooper. So he's been submitted by Chase Hooper. You know what? There's a good chance that he could get submitted here, right? He's been submitted by Paddy Pimblett. Unanimous decision loss. Okay, so there is a chance that Yadir is going to get this by submission. I'm going to go with Yadir by submission. right? I think that he catches Jordan Levitt sometime in the second or third round, and then from there, I think he capitalizes on a rear naked choke. So that's a bold prediction that I'm going to make. Yeah, I'm going to go with Yadir Del Valle on this one. Let me know what you guys think about that that particular fight, if you agree with that, because that's quite a bold prediction. I would imagine that Yadir, Yadir is probably the underdog. So John Dong says, I'm so hyped for the main event. Yes, I'm very much hyped for that, right? I want to see what type of ceiling Anthony Fluffy Hernandez has. And by the way, me and Fluffy have shared the same card together, so I love reminding people of that. So naturally, I'm gonna want to see Fluffy Hernandez win. So there it is. Got some light on you right there. Okay, so Toss says, you seem in a better headspace today. Great vibes to you. Yeah, thank you, my man. Thank you. I don't know what other days I seem or come across as not in a good headspace, but, you know, obviously, maybe it's just a different topic that we're talking about today. Today is a little bit more of an MMA-centric vibe, perhaps. Maybe that's the reason why, right? Because when you talk about politics and you get wild up about it, actually, I don't really get wild up about politics, but when people put their opinions on these particular matters, maybe you will feel a certain way, you'll act a certain way, they'll act a certain way, and it brings a certain vibe that's a little bit different. Whereas with MMA, look, I think some of the best friends that I've ever made in the world have come through MMA. Okay, primarily because, let's just be honest about this, right? Most people who watch MMA or even train MMA understand the extent of how violent the sport is, and definitely, even with the violence of the sport comes a lot of discipline. It comes with a lot of, how do I say this, empathy, right? With our favorite fighters, we sort of give empathy to our favorite fighters, right? As opposed to, let's say, a casual who sees somebody loses, they'll just go, he's a bum, this and that, write him off. Whereas if you're a Conor McGregor fan, you're like, well, you know what, he did really good wrestling against Khabib. He stuffed some of his takedowns, so you kind of give excuses to your fighters a little bit, right? A little bit of empathy, because it's a sport that understands the human side of reality, right? The reality of getting punched in your face, the reality of the consequences of getting punched in your face. So I think that sort of calms a lot of people down. And here's the thing, right? I think MMA people, or people that train in MMA, are some of the chillest people that you will ever meet. So yeah, you definitely talk about MMA with your heart. Okay, well, that's true. It is quite a passion of mine, but nonetheless. All right, moving on to the next card, we have Philip Rowe taking on Jean-Paul Lebonsani. Okay, sounds like a very Armenian name. I'm not sure, or maybe that's an Italian name, but all right. So Philip Rowe, 35 years old, 6'2", 170 pounds, 80-inch reach at 170 pounds. Let's hear what Jean-Paul, let's take a look at and see where Jean-Paul has been. JPL, as he's called, 9-2 in his UFC career. Jack Condon gets a head kick knockout with a right hook. That was in a Contender Series. So, okay, so this is his UFC debut, right, taking on Philip Rowe. Now, Philip Rowe, what can we say about Philip Rowe here, right? 11-6, almost a 50-50 record. Loses to a decision in his last fight against Ko. That was back in November. Ange Lusa, he gets a win over Ange Lusa back in June. Okay, takes on Lucas LaRue. That's a grappling competition. Loses to Jake Matthews. Gets choked out by Craig Jones. Loses to Neil Magny. This is a 50-50 fight. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Jean Paul on this one. I think that Jean Paul is going to win this one by decision, right? I just think that there's a reason why they signed him to the UFC. And I think that he could possibly be good enough to beat Philip Rowe. All right, let's take a look at where his fights have been to sort of determine that, right? So he gets a head kick win in his Contender Series fight, Dana White's Contender Series. Prior to that, he fights in LFA, which, by the way, LFA 206, it's a card that he headlined. He gets a triangle choke. Okay, he wins a unanimous decision. Prior to that, has some ground and pound strikes. First round, wow. Okay, so this dude is a finisher. Look at this. This dude finishes every single one of his fights. And the same thing in his amateur fighting as well, right? I don't know if this guy has had any decisions whatsoever. So he has one decision loss. One decision loss. Is that in the pros, though? Wait, what did he... Okay, so he's undefeated in the amateurs. Okay. Okay, yeah, he loses one time due to punches, okay, against Spike Carlisle. Okay, so he's been stopped twice. So this is a blood and guts type of fighter, man. Okay, I may have to rethink about my my prediction on this one. So he's a blood and guts type of fighter, right? Philip Rowe has been in there with Neil Magny. I think I'm going to go with Philip Rowe by decision. That's what I think. I think I'm going to go with Philip Rowe by decision. Because, yes, this guy is an impressive finisher, but he also gets finished, right? And then you have Philip Rowe, who's been in there with some big names. So I think that UFC experience that Philip Rowe has, regardless if it's a 50-50 record, I think will take him very far into this fight. That's what I think. I think this fight is going to go the distance, and if it goes the distance, the experience of Philip Rowe is going to show, and not only is it going to show, it is going to show the different levels that him and JPL have. Yeah, so I'm going to go with Philip Rowe by unanimous decision on this one, if not a split decision at best, right? There's a good chance that that goes to a split decision. Okay, so next fight. Next fight. Let's go to the next fight right now. Okay. So, Video Gamer says, I'm going to give you one more chance to get in the octagon and face me, the double champ. Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool. Cool story, bro. Shout out to Video Gamer 13. You know, I don't know if you're showing your age or your gang insignia, but in any regard. Next fight. Soriano taking on Ramiz Brahmich. I know Ramiz has a win over, what's his name? Mickey Gall. But this isn't Mickey Gall because you're dealing with a UFC vet like yourself, right? So this is a 50-50 fight right here. Ramiz and Punel Soriano. 50-50 fight. Let's take a look at the career of Soriano so far. So let's see what's going on with Soriano here from Hawaii, born 1992. Okay, so unanimous decision over Nikolai. That was back in October. That is UFC 320. Uras Mekdek has a win over him. So he's on a 3-fight win streak, okay? Has been choked out by Dustin Soltov, knocked out by Roman Kopylov. Has a win over Dalsha. Loses to Nick Maximoff. Wow, okay, that's actually one of Nate Diaz's training partners. That was back in 2022. Has a loss over Brendan Allen. All right, so, yeah, man, Soriano loses to only real top-tier guys, right? Now, let's take a look at it and see if his opponent here is top-tier. Now, once again, I got to tell you, this is why I say this is a 50-50 fight. Equal of age, right? Very similar age. So you got a 3-fight win streak, okay, starting from Mickey Gall. That was back in November 2024. Billy Ray Goff has a submission win over him. Austin Vanderfort has a submission win over him. Okay, So, ooh, this is a tough fight. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Ramiz on this one, right? I think Ramiz is going to win this one by submission. I'm going to go with Ramiz by submission on this one. Probably in the third round or so. I think they're going to fight to the third round, and somewhere along the lines, he's going to make a mistake, and then after that mistake, Ramiz is going to capitalize on him. Okay, so next fight up after that, it is Cornelli versus Jocelyn Edwards. Okay, let's take a look at where Jocelyn Edwards has been in her career. So let's see here. Jocelyn Edwards, not to be mistaken by Leon Edwards, obviously, Panamanian. So from Panama. Okay, has a 3-fight win streak right now. Okay, submissions and knockouts that come with that. Before that was a unanimous decision. And by the way, she's rematching Nora on this one, okay? It's a rematch. So this is a rematch, okay? And prior to the rematch, she won by unanimous decision. I think it's going to be one and the same. I think that Jocelyn Edwards is going to win by decision. Nora is just coming off of a decision loss. She's coming off of a submission win and then coming off of a split decision loss. And then gets knocking out Melissa Mullins in 2024 after she won. Wait, did she win this one? Okay, she won this one by unanimous decision, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm. You know what? I'll go with Nora by decision on this one, right? Same as last time. I think how she won last time is how she's going to win this time. Yeah, it's going to be a split decision win on the part of Nora. So I'm going to go with Nora on this one. Okay, so next fight. Alden Carrera taking on Luis Gorelli. Okay, so once again, another 50-50 fight. By the way, a lot of these fights are 50-50, right? Take a look at the record here, right? 11-3 and 0, and then 10-2 for Luis Gorelli. So those are very, very close-knit types of fights. Let's take a look at where Luis Gorelli has been in his career. Okay, the Grim, 10-2, has no wins in the UFC so far. Okay, so 2 losses. Okay, loses to Adi Osborne and then Jesus Aguilar. Okay, so he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Yeah, he might just lose this one. Alden Carrera, let's take a look at where he's been. He's been on a winning streak, right? This is his second UFC fight. So it looks like he's got some serious game on him right here. Yeah, man, serious pressure on the part of Luis. I'm gonna have to go with Alden Carrera on this one. I think that he wins by 3rd round stoppage. That's going to be my official prediction on that one. 3rd round stoppage. All right, so we move on to the card. So let's see here. As we move on to the card, we have Adi Osborne. Okay, obviously a former opponent of one of the 2 fighters that I just had mentioned, taking on Idris, 11-1 Idris. So I'm going to have to go with 11-1 Idris here, right? Let's take a look at where Albi Idris has been in his career. 10-1. The only loss he's had was in his last fight against Joseph Morales. Prior to that, he was undefeated. So Joseph Morales is no joke. Okay, exhibition MMA in the Ultimate Fighter. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner. Okay, I'm going to go with this guy, right? Adi Osborne, though. Let's take a look at where Adi Osborne has been in his career. Right, yeah, so for sure, this is a shoe-in win for Idris. But let's take a look at what Adi Osborne has been in his career. Okay, so let's see, Adi Osborne, the Jamaican sensation. 13-9, almost a 50-50 record here, right? So loses a fight against Steve Erzeg, right? No shame in that. Wins against Louis Gorelli, who's also in this card, right? Gets a left hook knockout. Loses to Ronaldo Rodriguez by decision, gets choked twice. Azu Amlabev. So for sure he's going to get choked out in this fight. Yeah, I think Idris is going to choke him out in this fight and, yeah, put him to sleep. That's where I see this fight going right here. So, yeah, an easy win for Idris on this one. Okay, so we move on. Now, in the main event of the prelims, you got Carlos Leal taking on Jiri Nojenjenki. Okay, so it is the welterweight division. So, all right, let's take a look at where Carlos Leal has been. 22-7 in his whole entire career. All right, so Carlos Leal, the Lion. Okay, looks like Jay Gomez in this picture right here. I've done this preview to this particular fight card, and I always mention how this guy looks like Luis J. Gomez, right? Let's find a picture of Luis J. Gomez and see if we can compare and contrast here. All right, so there's Luis J. Gomez. Okay, and then now here's Carlos Leal. We'll do a little side-by-side, and you tell me if this guy resembles him in some kind of way, right? Like, that right there is like virtually identical right there, right? This is virtually identical stuff right here, okay? So, all right, let's take a look at where Carlos Leal has been in his career, though. Okay, because looking like Luis J. Gomez may not necessarily help you with this fight. So he's lost to Muslim Salikov, has beaten Alex Moreno, knocked him out in the first round, lost to Renat Fakhretdinov by decision. Now he takes on Chidi Onenjechu, 25-11 in his MMA record, also known as the Bang Bang. Number 40 in the world of welterweight, has lost to Jake Matthews by rear naked choke. Yeah, this is going to be a 50-50 fight. I think I'm going to go with a decision on this fight. I think this fight goes to a clear decision, but I think this is a clear decision for... I'm going to go with the African guy. He says, can't argue with J.C. Denton. Who's J.C. Denton? Leonard, let me know who that is, by the way. And by the way, Leonard, are you a bodybuilder? I notice your profile picture there. It looks like you're either posing on stage in a bodybuilding competition or maybe someone else. But yeah, let me know if that's what you do, my man. By the way, first time I've seen you in the chat. You are very welcome. Let me know what part of the world you are from out here, my man. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the African guy on this one, Chidi, by unanimous decision. Split decision. I think it'll be a tough fight, right? It's a 50-50 fight, but, yeah, we'll see, right? But my money is on the African guy, even if I don't bet. But, all right, so that is the prelims. Let's get to the main card. Right now, starting from the main card, you have Michel Pereira taking on Zachary Reese. Now, look. This particular thing, he says that's a pic of Big Lenny, a fitness icon, R.I.P. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you for letting me know who that is. And by the way, who is J.C. Denton? Who is that, by the way? Oh, okay, it's a video game character. A protagonist of Deus Ex, a major character in Deus. Okay, got it. Can't argue with JT Denton. So, who's supposed to be JT Denton? Is that supposed to be somebody that we were talking about? But in any regards, all right, so let's go with Michel Pereira versus Zachary Reese, right? I'm going to go with Michel Pereira, right? Not for any technical reasons or anything like that. I just think that he's a fun fighter. 31-14, 31-14. I mean, it's a decent record. It's a winning record, right? But yeah, Zach Reese, 10-2 though. Okay, 23, ranked number 23 in the world when it comes to light heavyweights. So Jackson McVeigh has a rear naked choke on him. Cedric Dumas is a no contest. Now, why is that a no contest? Why is that a no contest? Is it because that is when Cedric Dumas sort of had that little situation going on? No. Okay, so that was in November where Cedric Dumas got submitted, where it looked like he was, sort of throwing the fight for the sake of just throwing it. But yeah, okay, so that's not the fight. Okay, Zach Reese has a win over Dusko. Has a win over Jose Medina, unanimous decision. Yeah, so, okay, this guy has good finishing potential. Can he finish Michel Pereira? I don't think so. I think that Michel Pereira is going to style on him all throughout this fight. That's what I think. I think that's how I see this fight going. He's going to style on him, and as he styles on him, he's not going to be able to do much about it. He's not going to be able to do anything about it, and yeah. I see this as a win. I see this as a win for Michel Pereira easily. Like, all 3 rounds, he's just going to stick and move and then make it look pretty, get out of the way, do some theatrics, maybe do a few backflips. Maybe he'll make a mistake a few times where he gets caught while he's trying to, style jazz and pizzazz. But eventually, I think, yeah, I think he'll win by style points. Okay. How about this welterweight division, right? 2 guys that are 11-0, 11-0 versus 11-0. 50-50 fight, right? I could see why they put this way above Michel Pereira, even though Michel Pereira is a UFC vet. So let's take a look at Josiah Harrell versus Jacob Smith. So Harrell, let's take a look at where he's been in his career, right? The Muscle Hamster Harrell. Very interesting name. The Muscle Hamster. I don't know why they call him that. Maybe because he has some sort of insane cardio. Corner stoppage in the LFA. Keegan Greenwich, Ohio Combat League. How about that, man? Are you familiar with that organization by any chance, Marty? Ohio Combat League. So I'm assuming that is a regional league that is in Ohio, obviously, indicative of the name. But yeah, he's fought in LFA. He's fought in LFA and Ohio Combat League, right? So he goes back and forth with them. Okay, so he's been in a lot of fights in Ohio Combat League. And look, Ohio Combat League has an amateur division as well. Okay, so obviously this guy fights out of Ohio, right? Born in the United States, doesn't say where, but I'm assuming he's in the Midwest area, right? Considering that, he's fought in Ohio a lot. So, all right, let's take a look at, what is this? New UFC signing, undefeated Josh Harrell. Let's read some articles on him. So, Joshua Harrell's first UFC experience was supposed to be the biggest moment of his life. Instead, it became a nightmare that likely saved his career and possibly his life. During fight week for UFC 290 in 2023, the undefeated prospect was pulled from a short notice bout against Jack Della Maddalena. Wow. Okay, he was supposed to fight Jack Della Maddalena. That is amazing. Okay, so this is interesting. This is interesting. This is a guy that was supposed to fight Jack Della Maddalena, and for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason, he just, couldn't make it to the fight. So, let's read why. Let's find out why he wasn't able to make it to the fight. Okay, so he was supposed to fight against Jack Della Maddalena after doctors discovered Harrell had been living with Moya, a rare brain disease that restricts blood flow and dramatically increases the risk of stroke during physical exertion. Wow. Okay, so yeah, that was a serious thing he had going on. The UFC immediately canceled his contract, and Harold faced a very real possibility that his fighting dreams were over before they truly began. Right? I mean, look, it's one thing. It's one thing if you're an undefeated guy. I'm sorry, if you're a guy with, let's say, a losing record, and then your fighting stops for you. But imagine you are an undefeated guy and you never really got to push to your full potential. So, because of just unfortunate circumstances. By the way, Tom Aspinall is going through this right now. We're going to talk about that in just a second, right? That's a very important topic to talk about. So he says, fast forward today, the muscle hamster is officially back in the UFC. UFC insider Marcel Dorf first reported that the signing via X, confirming that Harold will step in on a short notice to face Jacob Smith, okay, which is this week. So the promotion later confirmed that the undefeated welterweight has been added to the card, replacing the injured Young Ko. For Harold, this second opportunity is a validation for a grueling recovery process that includes brain surgery to reroute blood flow and prevent brain clotting. Very interesting. So Harold's journey since his devastating diagnosis has been nothing short of remarkable. Following the success of brain surgery, Ohio. Okay, so he is an Ohio native. Okay, so. Okay, so obviously, great story about him, right? Now, how about Jacob Smith, 11-0? So I'm really excited for this fight now, right? Now, what about Jacob Smith? Where is he at, right? 11-0 versus 11-0. Great matchmaking between these two, right? So he's got a win over Nico Price. That's a pretty serious win for as early as his career is. Okay, so he's in the UFC now for 2 fights, right? So this is his 3rd UFC fight right here. And obviously he was supposed to fight Song Young Ko in this one, and Joshua Harrell steps in. Yeah, dude, listen, I'm going to have to probably give a biased take on this one. I want to see Joshua Harrell win this one, but I think the experience on Jacob Smith is a little too much. Right? And we never knew how he was going to do against Jack Della Maddalena. Then here comes Jack Della Maddalena becoming a world champion. And, yeah, but I think UFC experience wins all, right? So I'm 2 fights in the UFC already. He knows what it's like to be in there. I'm going to give him a unanimous decision win. Jacob Smith. Yes, great story on the part of Joshua Harrell, but nobody likes fairy tale endings in the world of fighting, right? Just like the Tyson Fury and the Makhmudov fight, right? Makhmudov might easily just destroy Tyson Fury there, and all these notions of like, yeah, I was trying to, what do you call it? Do something different with my life. I'm trying to revamp my career, or all this other stories that, he has going on. I mean, it virtually means nothing at this point, right? So, yeah, man, I'm going to go with him on this one. Jacob Smith. So, yeah, regardless of fairy tale endings and whatnot, I just think that he's going to face somebody that is already a UFC vet. So, all right, so moving on. Moving on to the card. Sergey Spivak versus Ante Delija. Ante Delija didn't do too good against Costa. Obviously, he got his eyes, he poked his eye out, right? Sergey Spivak is a very experienced heavyweight. But let's see where their careers have been so far. Let's see where Sergey Spivak has been in his career. So he's on a 2-fight losing streak, right? He loses to Jailton Almeida, loses to Waldo Acosta, right? This is also a mutual opponent of theirs, right? Ante Delija has fought Waldo Acosta. His last loss was against Waldo Acosta, has a win over Myson Tybura. has a win over Yorgan De Castro. 50-50 fight, man. Valentin Moldeski at the PFL back in 2024. Wow. So, you know what, man? I might have to go with Ante Delija on this one, right? Although I am skeptical because he didn't have Tom Aspinall to train with in this training camp. Obviously, Tom Aspinall had some things going on with his life and his career. We're going to get to that. And actually, you know what? Let's get to that right now because obviously it's sort of relative to this situation right now, right? See, this is a difference between me and other prediction shows. I actually give you guys a story in between, right? So him not having Tom Aspinall in his corner and not in the training camp because Tom Aspinall could barely train right now, right? He could barely hit the bag without hurting himself through the exertion that he has to push. That's not a good sign. Tom Aspinall right now could potentially never fight again. And he's not even worried about fighting right now. The only thing that Tom Aspinall is worried about right now is actually being able to play with his kids. Now, I need you to imagine how dire of a situation that is, okay? He can't even play with his kids. He can't even see straight. He can't even hit the mitts correctly without knowing where is what because his eye is so messed up, and this is all because of a freak injury. So all of you that are saying, yeah, Tom Aspinall needs to come in here and fight at the White House, that's not happening. You don't even know if Tom Aspinall is going to fight in 2027. So I think this is an important factor for Ante Delija, not having Tom Aspinall there, but Tom Aspinall also has some top heavyweights in his camp as well. So I'm sure that there are some people in there that can help him prepare for the best possibility that he can face against Sergey Spivak here. But I think this is going to be a 50-50 fight. I think this is going to be a 50-50 fight. I'm gonna go with Ante Delija, right? I'm gonna go with Ante Delija. I think that he shows his full potential here, and I think Sergey Spivak. I think that his streak is losing streak is going to follow him. So Dan Ige versus Mizel Costa. I'm going to go with Dan Ige on this one. Dan Ige is a grinder of a fighter, right? Once again, the co-manager of Dominance MMA with Ali Abdelaziz. Let's take a look at where his career has been so far. Has lost to Patricio Pitbull back in July. Has a win over Sean Woodson. That's a very tall 145er. Lost to Laron Murphy. No shame in that. Lost to Diego Lopez. No shame in that. By the way, a very good fight. A catch weight at 165. Has a win over Andre Feely. Has a loss over Bryce Mitchell by unanimous decision. So this is a guy that takes a lot of these guys to a decision, right? Now, what about Costa? Where has he been in his whole entire career right now? Now, we know Costa has this skin condition he has going on right now, as you can see. So, right now he is 25-7 in his record. Let's take a look at where he is at Topology right here. So, the Dalmatian. Yeah, they call him a Dalmatian, obviously, because of his skin condition. Wow, okay, so he's been on a tear lately, right? Morgan Sherrier, former Cage Warriors champion, head kick KO. Julian Erosa, unanimous decision. Christian Rodriguez, unanimous decision. Guillotine choke on Andre Feely. Yeah, this is going to be a tough fight for Andre, for Dan Ige. I'm going to have to go with Costa by decision on this one. Right, obviously he got beat by Steve Garcia. No shame in that. Steve Garcia is a top 145er right now. So yeah, as much as I love Dan Ige, I think that Costa has the chance to win this one. But you never know. Dan Ige might just edge out a decision and grind him out. You never know, man. You know, the son of a Navy SEAL Hawaiian and the co-manager to Ali Abdelaziz. So, all right, co-main event. We got Jeff Neal taking on Uros Medic. I'm going to have to go with, you know what, Jeff Neal is a top 170 fighter, right? but right now he's 35 years old. Okay, and he is currently ranked, where is he ranked right now? Number 12 in the welterweight division. Has lost to Carlos Prates, right? Has a win over Rafael Dos Anjos. Has lost to Ian Machado Gary. Has lost to Shavkat, no shame in that, but has beaten Vicente Luque and Santiago Ponzinibbio. Has lost to Neil Magny. Even Stephen Wonderboy Thompson back in, that was like 5 years ago now. So, okay. He trains under Saif Saud. They have a very good team down in Texas. So, yeah, okay. So this is a sort of a home fight for him because this is a fight in Texas. Uras Medic. Let's see where he's been. A Serbian mixed martial artist, competes in the welterweight division. 32 years old. He's been on a 2-fight winning streak. Has a win over Muslim Salikov. Okay, but has lost to Soriano, who, by the way, is on the undercard on this one. Has been knocked out in 31 seconds, yet Soriano is in the undercard, and he's in the co-main event. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with Jeff Neal on this one. Jeff Neal has taken on some top-level competition, has done great against top-level competition. So I'm going to go with Jeff Neal on this one. All right. So that is the co-main event of the evening. Now let's get to the main event of the evening, shall we? Okay, so Strickland versus Anthony Hernandez. Look, this is going to sound biased, but I'm going to go with Anthony Hernandez. Look, has Sean Strickland been on a tear lately? Has he been on a run? Sure. But I think that run comes to an end. I think Sean Strickland is a little too concerned about being a social media superstar now, even though he goes and basically diminishes social media influencers or online, streamers and things of that nature. But here's the reality of it, right? Sean Strickland only spars, okay? And I think that's very limited. Look, it's great to spar because, let's be honest, if you go out there and spar, it gives you a heads up into understanding what you need to do, how it is like to be in there, how to have that combat competitive edge, right? It's also, very important. Constantino says, shall. What's up, brother? Shout out to you, Constantino. Just breaking down the main event right now. Did a whole full card breakdown. Now we are on to the main event right now. And after we talk about the main event, we're going to get to some news, reviews, and all the things that are going on in the world of MMA and in the world outside of MMA. So not only are we going to look at the daily lives, our daily lives of MMA as a soap opera, we're also going to look at the soap opera of the world as well. He says, I can't wait for the main event, not going to lie. Yeah, man, this is the whole card is exciting, right? As I was breaking down this whole card, I realized how much of a 50-50 fight a lot of these matchups are, including the main event. But here's the thing. Sean Strickland only spars. He doesn't condition. He barely runs. He barely does anything other than just spar all day. I don't think he even lifts nor does sprints or does any type of conditioning. And I think it's going to be a problem when he gets in there against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who's wrestling-centric, who pushes the pace, who constantly tries to get you up out of there with constant submission attempts, constant transitions, constant ground and pound, and constant moving forward motion. Now, here's the thing. Sean Strickland, Constantino says Sean won't gas out, neither will Fluffy. Yes, so I was about to get to that, right? The clashing of them moving forward. Usually, some fighters, they will usually either fight forward or fight backwards, and then that's sort of what you see with most fights, right? There's one fighter that goes backwards and one fighter that moves forward, and then sometimes you get that really exciting Mexican-style boxing where they come close range and they start throwing hooks, punches at each other, or try to move each other forward. Here's the thing. As Sean Strickland tries to move forward, Hernandez is going to use that as a way to get low, change his level, shoot in on Sean Strickland, get him up against the fence, and it's going to be a rinse and repeat for 5 rounds, and I think a lot of people are going to be shocked by this, right? So earlier in the beginning of the live stream, right, I showed you guys a comment that someone made on the Tom Aspinall video that I made, the Tom Aspinall live stream that I did about him getting stripped, right? But in that live stream, I also talk about Tony Yayo punking Ja Rule on the plane. Now, this is what he said, right? And follow me on this, because this goes into the subject that we're talking about. He says, Ja stood his ground. They got him pulled off the plane, stopped the cap. Okay, so here's the thing, right? He's absolutely right. Okay, as much as I love 50 Cent, as much as I love G-Unit, as much as I love those guys, he's right about that. The problem is the whole world loves G-Unit. They love 50 Cent more than they love Ja Rule, and as a result, people are going to go with the winners of history. Now, when it comes to the history of wars, of rap wars, I would say that 50 Cent won that war, right? He won the records in terms of getting the most record sales. He won the notoriety war, right? He became way more famous than Ja Rule. And then everywhere Ja Rule goes, people spit at him, say G-Unit, oh, 50 punked you or this and that. So in other words, the popular guy, okay, and remember, this goes into the Fluffy Hernandez situation that I was talking about. The popular guy will always have the narrative over the least popular guy, and I need you guys to understand that, right? So right now, the way that people are looking at this, they're looking at Fluffy Hernandez as just another victim of Sean Strickland. Why? Because Sean Strickland is a popular guy. And so the popular guy is always going to win the narrative. But this guy is right about that, right? Ja Rule did stand his ground. The only difference is that you are dealing with G-Unit, the most popular rap group in the world, the rap group that ruined your rap career. So therefore, people are going to listen to him more than they're going to listen to you, and that's just the reality of the situation. Constantinos, shout out to you, my man. Thank you for the super chats, my man. He says, big up from London. Thank you, my man. Shout out to you and your super chat. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. He says, they say Sean's grappling is actually good even though he doesn't show it. Well, here's the thing, right? Do you speak Spanish, Constantinos, right? If you do speak Spanish, how often do you speak it? Because here's the thing, right? Are you going to speak Spanish better than, let's say, a person who lives in Madrid, as opposed to, let's say, a person who lives in Puerto Rican town, USA, in New York, right? No, I'm just speaking a hypothetical scenario, right? What I'm saying is that you don't get better by not using something. In other words, Sean Strickland doesn't use his wrestling in fights, so how is it just going to miraculously show up in a fight where he's taking on somebody who's wrestling-centric? This is why the thumbnail that I have for this particular live stream looks like this. So if you guys are looking at my thumbnail right now, this is what the thumbnail looks like, right? What did I say here? I say wrestling wins fights. And of course, with that, I had to find a picture of Sean Strickland with wrestling singlets on to really emphasize that wrestling wins fights. Now, here's the guy that has wrestling singlets. In this picture, he's in his regular fight day uniform, but he's really the one with the wrestling singlets. And this guy, well, just like him wearing the American flag, all these grandstandings, all of these, performative, actions that Sean Strickland does, I don't think it's going to show up. It's not going to show up at all in that fight, man. Anthony Hernandez is wrestling-centric. He goes to wrestling all the time. He can strike with you as well. So it's going to be a problem for Sean Strickland. 5-round decision by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He says, I'm so back and forth with this fight, but I'll stick to Fluffy and his momentum. That's what I'm saying, man. Do not not that confident in it, though. You want to know why you are lacking the confidence for Fluffy Hernandez right now? Because Sean Strickland is a very powerful figure in the world of the internet. That's why. Okay, that is why. Look, in the McGregor and Khabib fight, and granted, Conor McGregor did decent enough to really put Khabib on his heels, right? He did decent enough. But you have to remember, there were people going into that fight that thought Conor McGregor was going to win. Okay, they thought that he was going to win. Why? Because Conor McGregor had the narrative. He had the notoriety, the popularity. At the time, Conor McGregor was way astronomically way more popular than Khabib. And you could not fight that. You could not fight that narrative. In fact, he made that look like a sure thing. That, you know what, hey, he's going to come in here, he's going to knock Khabib out because Khabib doesn't have good striking. Lo and behold, what does Khabib do? You're Conor McGregor. This is Conor McGregor's POV. You're Conor McGregor, you that I'm looking at the screen right now. This is you as Conor McGregor. Remember that? Remember that overhand right? Boom. That's what Conor McGregor saw during that fight. He's like, man, this guy can't outbox me. I just boxed Floyd Mayweather. You see? Overhand right. Didn't even see it coming. He says, Sean isn't easy to hold down as well, by the way. Yes. Okay, so you're very much correct about that. But remember, he has a rinse and repeat fighting style. Once he takes you down, sure, you'll get back up. He'll get back up there and take you down again. I love Drake May 10th says, you look like Khamzat Chimaev. Thank you. Thank you for that. I get that a lot. You know, I take that as a serious compliment. Thank you. So, yes, guys, do not let the popularity of Sean Strickland dictate to you how this fight is going to go. Because popularity does not mean anything in this fight. Okay? What matters is momentum. What matters is the pace of how this fight is going to go. What matters is the fact that Sean Strickland has not used his wrestling, nor does he train his wrestling. Look, when Sean Strickland trains, all he does is kickbox. That's literally what he does, right? He might as well just be a Muay Thai fighter. Like, he kickboxes in his whole entire training session. That's it. He's a kickboxer. He's a kickboxer. He teeps, he jabs, he punches. That's it. He says, Fluffy is low-key the Marab of the middleweight division with better striking. Does he have better striking than Marab? I'd say so. I would say so. Chiga says, a habit missed once is a mistake, but a habit missed twice is a start of a new habit. Huh. Is that in reference? I'm going to mark your comment right there, Chiga. Okay, now, is that in reference to the fact that Sean Strickland does not use his wrestling? Is that what you mean? Please elaborate and let me know in the comment section below if that's what you mean. Let me read that again. A habit missed once is a mistake, but a habit missed twice is the start of a new habit. So in other words, the habit of Sean Strickland is to jab, steep, and kick, and that's it. He says what matters is Ronda versus Carano. Fresh melon juice. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, my man. Shout out to you. Yes, Ronda versus Carano. What is that? Is that a thing? Is that a thing that is going on? That perhaps Ronda Rousey is going to fight Carano? If so, that makes sense, right? Because Ronda Rousey has not fought since 2016. And if she was to come back and fight, let it be somebody like Gina Carano, who is a big name, who's big money, but at the same time, easy enough for her to beat, right? Because Ronda Rousey was sort of the new evolution of women's MMA at the time, right? At least in the preliminary stages, you know, just a one-skill, one-trick pony type of fighter at the time, right? But then, prior to that, was an even worse era, an era where they were just trying to figure things out, and that is the era of Gina Carano and even Miesha Tate. And we saw the fight with Miesha Tate, even though she evolved after she had been beaten by Ronda Rousey twice. During the time that she fought Ronda Rousey, really showed just the ceiling of technical efficiency that women's fighting was at that time. Fresh Melon Juice says Netflix. So when you're saying Netflix, are you saying that, are you saying that, what do you call it? Are you saying they're going to have a boxing fight? He says Kyrie won't be eating during the stream today. Well, that's tomorrow, my man. Tomorrow starts Ramadan. So obviously Wednesday is the start of Ramadan. So yeah, it's going to be a long month. I tell you what, listen. Every Ramadan, I notice that my channel, that is like the peak of where my channel's at. I think maybe that's just Allah helping me. Inshallah, I hope I get the same, you know, type of reception and the same type of feedback from the world of YouTube, you know, during Ramadan, because I tend to have good numbers during Ramadan at that time. So, but yeah, I will not be eating during the day, but yeah, I will be live streaming during the day just to kind of, you know, let time pass by and keep it cracking and going. So, yeah, man. All right, so that right there is the predictions that I have for the whole full card. I just did a whole hour of it. We'll continue on because obviously there's some news that I'd like to cover right now. In particular, Tom Aspinall, right? Is Tom Aspinall ever going to come back? And the answer, well, is no. I don't think Tom Aspinall is ever going to come back. And let's take a look at and hear what Pete Carroll was saying about Tom Aspinall yesterday. Very interesting stuff.
If you have CalFresh, Medi-Cal, or SSI, you may qualify for a free iPhone 11.
You put out the article of the weekend, the thing that everybody's talking about. I thought it only be right and only be fair to welcome you back, other boys in the back. All right, PT. So obviously, big news coming out of Camp Aspinall. You were there for when Tom went in for surgery. Give us the broad strokes. Obviously, you covered quite a bit of this on the crack, but give us the broad strokes for our audience in terms of what you saw when you were there with Tom, the people.
Toothbud asks, Fluffy over Strickland. Right, yes, that is my official prediction. Constantino says, will they do Gon Poetan at the White House card, I guess? Who else would be a qualification for a heavyweight fight? Well, obviously, they're going to vacate the title. Cyril Gane was at a very competitive fight with Tom Aspinall, but it became a no contest. So, interim. Constantino says interim. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I know that Tom Aspinall is the official heavyweight champion right now. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Because, look, well, you need to hear what these guys are talking about, right? Because when I was listening to this yesterday, I was like, man, listen, I got to get this audio into the live stream and let you guys hear this, because everything that I have heard from this conversation leads me to believe Tom Aspinall is going to get stripped. The only thing is that the UFC is not going to tell you that right now, because how the UFC works is that they sort of wait a little bit to kind of strip somebody. They don't like strip them right away, but Victory says, I actually heard they are trying to make Jones versus Pereira a light heavyweight. There you go, right? So what is that going to do for the heavyweight division, right? That makes sense, right? But because they want to bring lineage and prestige back to the 205 division, because if, let's say, Alex loses, then John was never really a heavyweight to begin with, because here he is coming back for his belt. So Connor Siller says Strickland with an easy win. I happen to have something different to that. Toothbud says, how do you feel about the whole Aspinall debacle? Bro seems to really have a lot of issues with his eyes. Yeah, he's going to get stripped, Toothbuds. That's just really what it is. Fresh Mellinger says Aspinall was juggling a small soccer ball perfectly in Italy before the operation. So much for vertigo and double vision. Yeah, look, that doesn't mean much, bro. It doesn't mean that he's not able to, you know, function. Remember, Michael Bisping won a middleweight championship with a broken freaking eye. And I'm saying that in pun of Kurt Angle saying, I won the gold medal in the Olympics with a broken freaking neck. Well, he won the middleweight champion with a broken freaking eye. And Tom Aspinall lost his championship to a broken freaking eye. You know what I mean? So he says, really, Connor, are you trolling? No, I think he believes it. I think he believes that you know that Sean Strickland could win. Connor says Tom is using this as an excuse to fix pre-existing eye problems. He's a dosser. Oh, okay. Listen, let me explain to the American audience what a dosser is, right? Because you guys have heard Tyson Fury say dosser this, dosser that. Let me explain to you what a dosser is. It's somebody that takes they take government assistance. That's what a dosser is. So in other words, you're calling Tom Aspinall a bum or somebody that games the system. Okay, for example, let's take the Somalis, for example, right? And I've told you guys this over and over again. I really don't blame the Somalis for quote-unquote committing fraud, because guess what? This country commits fraud to you on an everyday basis, and if you can get away with it, I'm going to look the other way. You know what I mean? Ain't no snitching on this side, baby. But all I'm saying is that the Somalians are dossers. That's what a dosser is. So in other words, Connor is trying to say here, Connor Siller, BJJ, is saying that Tom Aspinall deliberately did all of this so that he can fix problems that he had prior going into a fight. Okay? That's sort of what a lot of fighters do. They go into a fight knowing that the UFC is going to cover them medically, knowing that they have pre-existing injuries, and then whatever pre-existing injury they had prior to that fight, they're going to use it as an excuse to get in there and and get free medical coverage via the UFC. But Tom Aspinall lives in England, where they have NHS, so that should tell you a lot right there. He says, no victory. They're making John Jones versus Pantoja at heavyweight. Get out of here with your Pantoja stuff. I'm so glad Van beat up, Pantoja, man. Get out of here with your Pantoja stuff, bro. You know, this is a Joshua Van era right here. You know what I mean? Shout out to Joshua Van and all the Asian boys out there. He says, I think Aspinall is milking it too because he looked like an idiot, huh? He says, I already locked Strickland. Okay, so in other words, you're saying you locked in a bet for Strickland. Good luck to you on that. I tend to disagree with that bet, but we'll see. He says that would be a better, right, Fresh? No, it would not be better, man. Stop putting Pantoja in these situations. In fact, that's the reason why Pantoja got hurt in the first place, Fresh, because you constantly put this guy in situations against heavyweights, and then you wonder why he got in there and got injured, against Joshua Van. He says, LOL, yes. Toothbud says, they say he has a permanent black spot in his vision and is missing handshakes. There you go, bro. He's missing handshakes, and he also can't hit mitts. This guy is not in a shape to fight. D. Porter says, you look like a Uzbekistan judoka. Thank you, my man. I always get that, right? Even though I'm half Arabic and half Pacific Islander, I constantly get, Eastern European or, I think it's the beard, obviously, because this beard is actually what a lot of Salafi conservative Muslims have around the world. A lot of sheikhs, a lot of Islamic scholars, they have this beard, but it just so happens that because Chechnya and Dagestan is a predominantly Sunni country, right? There's virtually no Shias in Chechnya or Dagestan. They all have beards like this. So, I think that's what it is. He says, you don't know what the F you're talking about. How about this? Let's send you to the Shadow Realm. Goodbye. How about this, huh? Let's send you, bang, to the Shadow Realm. Goodbye. Constantino says, ignore them trolls. We'll just send them to the Shadow Realm just like that. Back! Okay. Toothbud says, Connor, but you actually think it's an easy win? You actually think it's an easy win? He's asking you. Connor says, easy is a stretch, but I think Sean wins comfortably. I tend to disagree based on the wrestling, but, no fights are definitive until the two athletes actually fight. And what method of victory? I'm going to go with decision. Constantino says, I'm not saying Sean can't win, but why do you think he wins comfortably? Toothbart says, so Fluffy won't be able to take him down, basically. Sean by banana split. Okay, Connor says, I personally would love to see Powhatan versus Unsure Jubilee. Powhatan, oh my God, man. Powhatan against Jubilee. Listen, man, get this Jubilee guy up out of here, man. You know what I mean? The idiocracy of this guy, goes out there and says that he can submit Khabib, and yet he can't even break into the top 10 of the UFC. I mean, get out of here with that. He says Sean can actually grapple better than what he shows in fights. Okay, but here's the thing, right? If you're not using this in a fight, what are you going to do when you're... Man, look, do you know what Khamzat would do to Sean Strickland? In fact, listen, a buddy of mine who I've trained with for a long time, right? He submitted Sean Strickland down in LA, right? A buddy of mine, Fitness Anonymous. I want you guys to look up... Let me see if I can find this guy right here. Fitness Anonymous. This is the guy that I trained with for years and years, right? He has a YouTube channel, but he sort of, masked himself. I think he did, what do you call it? A face reveal as of lately. Let me show you who this is. This is his videos right here.
I want to take a look at Canelo Alvarez's training routine, specifically in his head movement. I want to take a look at some of his training and talk about it.
Okay, wait, let's see.
I had a couple people ask me, they don't want to do heavy squats no more, but they want to work on their explosiveness. I said, no problem. You can do this from home or you can do it at the gym, but if you have resistance band.
This is a buddy of mine, okay? He submitted Sean Strickland at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu down in LA.
Heavy kettlebells where you jump, the kettlebells don't jump with you. You can tie them on there and put them on your shoulder, and this is a great explosive workout for your body. And you don't have to use those heavy weights. 100%, it works great. I had a couple people ask me, they don't want to do heavy squats no more, but they want to work on their explosiveness.
Okay, I'm gonna show you I'm gonna show you a picture of him and me training at Team Alpha Male, right? So yeah, this dude, yeah, he's already submitted Sean Strickland, and this is not even, somebody who's an active pro fighter. So hold on, let me see if I can find the picture here. Let's see here. I'm just trying to find a picture of him and me training at Team Alpha Male here. Where is this picture at? I have trouble finding this picture. Oh, Jordan says, happy Ramadan. Shout out to you, my man. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to find this guy's picture just to show you who I'm talking about. So yeah, Fitness Anonymous has already submitted, here it is, right here. That's Fitness Anonymous right there in the middle, right there. That's him. That's him. He says, yeah, in comp or in practice, LOL, big difference. Yeah, I mean, it is practice, but, it kind of shows you the habit that he has going on. He says, yeah, I think Fluffy will get him down a time or two, but Sean is no bum on the ground and will ultimately win the scrambles. Okay. Jordan says, happy Ramadan. He says, yeah, you know how many people I've subbed in the gym that could cook me in competition. It's different. He says, that's right. Kyrie won't be taking as many snack breaks now. Yeah. I think Sean scares fighters inside the cage. He's an emotionless psychopath. Yes. Once again, the other thing also that you have to understand is that Sean has the overall narrative on his side, right? That's something that you have to understand, is that he has the overall narrative on his side, and people are easily going to believe him because of that reason alone. But all right, let's get to this video with Tom Aspinall and his eye situation.
Who you spoke to and your major takeaways?
Yeah, obviously, I've been speaking to his team since this happened. I've been covering Tom since 2018, 2017 about, I think. So I've always been kind of keeping up with it. So I guess the big takeaway for me is it isn't really a question of...
He says, Patty got subbed recently too. Does that make him a bad grappler? No, but it does show certain holes to his game, though, right? And that's what I'm saying, is that at least Patty uses grappling in fights. Sean Strickland doesn't use none of it at all. He doesn't use any of it. He says, is Sean currently the favorite heading into this week? I locked it. Yeah, he's not the favorite, so that's plus 200. So that means he's not the favorite? Is that right? He says Fluffy beating the favorite. Fluffy the beating favorite. Is he? Oh, the betting favorite. Oh, wow. Okay, well, there you go. I didn't even look at odds, but, you know, it makes sense why he would be the favorite. Yes.
When he's going to be back, it's more of a question.
All right, back to Tom Aspinall and his eye situation. You guys got to hear what they're talking about with this. You will absolutely be convinced that Tom Aspinall is going to get stripped after you hear this. Because when I was hearing Pete Carroll talk about this yesterday, I was absolutely convinced that he's going to lose this fight. He says the beating favorite. Yes, yeah, I read that wrong, obviously. You know, maybe it's me that has eye problems now and not Tom Aspinall. Man said beating favorite. Yeah, oh man, you guys are going to roast me for that one. All right, let's have it. Come on, the beating favorite. I'm just going to see it now, right? He says Kyrie had an Aspinall moment there. I didn't see none of that. All right, but anyways, yeah. So listen, you guys have to hear. He says Zane will be hitting you up for picks soon. Man, you know what? Listen, he should refrain from betting during Ramadan, don't you think? You know what I mean? Like, hey, listen. All right, how about this? Right? If we have a stream going on while it's Ramadan, and if he talks about betting, I need you guys to go and scold him, right? Because, you know, it's one thing that I scold him for it, but if you guys scold him for it, you know, then they'll add more pressure into it. So, you know, if you see Zane betting in one of my live streams, you know, please let him know, like, you know, Habibi, this is haram. You cannot be doing this, especially not on Ramadan. Why are you betting Sean Strickland versus Hernandez for this fight? This is haram, Habibi. You cannot be doing this. He says, yeah, then he'll threaten to beat me up again. He didn't threaten to beat you up, bro. He doesn't know you from a can of paint, bro. You know, I assure you, Zane is much more level-headed than that, right? I'm sure he understands that, like, you know, you're from the other side of the world. And even if he was to see you in person, I think he understands, like, look, you know, these are, you know, it's MMA, man. You know what I mean? It's the MMA world. He knows as well, being in the boxing world, he knows that, you know, people talk and people have opinions, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean? You know, he's 14,000 deep in his subscriber base. He understands YouTube. He says, yeah, he did. He said if I said it to his face, he would beat me down. Wow, okay, I didn't catch that part. He says, Jordan says, Abdul gets the rocks. Okay. He says, no haram, brother. Yeah, well, not for you, obviously, but if you're a Muslim betting during Ramadan, I mean, listen, that's, you know, it's very bad. Very bad. Very, very bad. Right? Zane said he was booking a direct flight to smash a victory. He did not say that, bro. Stop, you know, trying to, like, you know, create a fight here. You know what I mean? Like, victory, tell him I'll fold him like a taco for you, mate. LOL. Well, you are in that part of the world, Connor, so, you know, you're more than likely to see him first before, you know, victory does, so.
Question of, can everything get back to normal for him before he can even start to get things back on track with his fighting career? Like, there is no real time frame in terms of when this is going to be sorted out. Obviously, he had the surgery while I was there. There is obviously a large recovery period after that, and there could be another surgery on top of that as well. So, in terms of what's going on with Tom, when is he going to be back in the octagon, I think I can safely speak for him. When he wishes he could get back in there as soon as possible. We kind of have some testament to that within the piece where we spoke to his striking coach about an attempt that was made about 6 weeks.
Listen to this part right here, okay? This is going to convince you. This is going to convince you. London, if you're talking about Zane, yeah, he lives in London. You know, in particular in the Brixton area of London. You know, basically the Compton of London. Okay, so you know, enter that place. You know, at your own will if you must. But you know, as somebody who's been around dangerous people and has been around dangerous parts of the world. Yeah, man, you know, just be careful. He says, the big South London in here. That's right, man. Come on now, lads. You know, that's how you know, that's how you know somebody's British, right? When they start telling a story and they use the word straight away. Yeah, so straight away, I went at him. Straight away. Right? That is a British thing to say straight away. He says, I'm from the South too. All right. So we got some London homies up in here, man. I love London, bro. I love the vibes in London. You know, I love London and in the UK like I love California. You know what I mean? And that's right. You know, we represent where we from out here, all of that whole nine and all that. You know what I'm saying? I live in America now, brother. Haven't lived in the UK since I was a wee lad. Wow, man. So when did you move to America, Connor? How old were you when you moved to America? I was 7 years old when I moved here from Libya, right? You know, and before that, you know, obviously I was living in different parts of the world. I was living in the Philippines and Hong Kong and different, you know, areas of that region. And then, you know, eventually I made my way to Jersey City, and then, you know, out here in California. But yeah, he says, Kyrie, you ever been to London? Of course, man. Of course. Plenty of times. Fresh Melonju says, Aspinall, his team, and this dude taking on Ariel's show are all saying that Tom didn't do a certain operation, but they refuse to say what kind of operation they actually did. Okay, so let's get to this.
6 weeks ago to hit pads that went disastrously. Like, it's...
So he tried to hit pads 6 weeks ago and it went disastrously, right? Just like me saying the beating favorite, right? You know what I mean? The beating favorite, right? He was the beating favorite against his pad man, against the pads that Tom Aspinall was hitting, and he lost.
You know, he spoke about not being able to find the pads, if he put it too far to the left or right. You know, a very depressing situation all around. We spoke to other members of his team who said, like,
yeah, man, loved London. He says, I was still a baby under 2 years old, moved from Roscommon, Ireland to San Diego. Wow, man. Okay, so Ireland to San Diego. Wow, dude. Dude, that is such a contrasting different part. Because look, California, wherever you are in California, it's sunny, right? Obviously not right now. It's looking like London outside right now in Sacramento with this California rain looking like London rain, right? You know, and we had a little bit of some hail, right? Looked like a little bit of some, you know, ice falling in the sky or whatever. But that's, you know, that's here or there, right? Not every, but San Diego, the average is 70 degrees, 75 degrees all year round. Never a winter in sight, right? There's not even a winter in Sacramento, but, you know, because it's Northern California, it's a tad bit colder, but still California. Fresh says, Tom is not coming back until Gon has a fight booked. Constantino says 2 different worlds. Yup, definitely 2 different worlds. All right, so listen to this. This right here is going to convince you why Tom Aspinall is never going to fight again. Constantino says, I actually been to San Diego. I like it a lot. Yeah, man. It's beautiful. A lot of Marine Corps. There's a Marine Corps base there, a naval base. I got a buddy down there who's in the Coast Guard. He, you know, has lived down there, was originally stationed in Hawaii, then moved back to San Diego, his hometown. So, yeah, man, beautiful, beautiful part of the world. I mean, look, San Diego has military people and gang members all at the same time. I mean, it's my kind of world, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I love it. Why not? He says, I'm jealous of you guys, weather, man. Yeah, man, it's a beautiful weather out here. In fact, that's why Tyson Fury said he was training out in Thailand, was because of that reason alone. Because, you know, he liked the weather. He liked, you know, the sunshine, and he feels that it's good for him to get ready for his upcoming fight. He says, yeah, San Diego is beautiful. It's sunny with a nice breeze right now. Fresh Melon, who says, yeah, he says, is gang violence that bad over there? Look, California and I've emphasized this plenty of times with different types of contents that I did here, right? Because not only do I do MMA content, I do cultural content as well. And yes, gang violence is really bad in California. In fact, listen, I'm going to tell you this, right? This is why I find Nick and Nate Diaz to be weirdos, in my humble opinion, right? I mean, look, they're great fighters, right? But when it comes to the streets, they're weirdos because, let's be honest, these guys were never in a gang yet. They're in a county, they're in a city of Stockton where literally everyone is in a gang. I promise you, everyone in Stockton is in a gang, and there are people who are police officers and gang members alike who can attest to this. Okay, there is, yeah, it is gangland, you know, to the max. So for him to not be in a gang, you know, you got to think, you know, maybe there's something weird about him. Now, look, I grew up in the East Coast as well. I was never in a gang in the East Coast, right? It was never, you know, down with anybody or anything like that. I had homies that were thugs that did, you know, X, Y, and Z that lived that life, but were never really, I mean, I knew a few Bloods in New Jersey, but, you know, was never really part of them or anything like that. But when you are in California, it's a little bit different. He says, I never liked the Diaz brothers acting like they are the toughest gang members. And I'm like, brother, you are like 40 years old. Relax. Exactly. So here's the thing, right? This is why I kind of have a problem with Nick and Nate Diaz sort of emulating the gang culture aspect to their persona, right? Everything that they do, the way that they walk, the way that they talk, slapping people up and this and that, this is all part of gang culture. You understand? But they never were in a gang, right? So the idea to say that, yeah, I mean, you know, that's just my criticism of them. He says, I mean, gang violence in London is bad, but obviously can't compare it to the States. You know, orange and apples, right? It's orange and apples, right? Depending on what kind of fruit you're talking about. He says Stockton and Lodi are bad. I'll give them that. Yeah, LOL. Fresh Melody says Connor called out their fake gang BS. So here's the thing about Connor, right? And all the Irish guys in the chat right now are going to attest to this. Conor McGregor is far more gangster than Nate Diaz. And a lot of people are not going to like to hear that. Conor McGregor is more gangster than Nate Diaz. Let me explain why. Conor McGregor owns a record label. Okay? You know the type of people that he has signed to his record label? Some of the old school artists like Exhibit. That's a West Coast artist. Bone Thugs and Harmony. They're not a West Coast artist or Ohio, but they are West Coast adjacent due to their affiliations with Eazy-E. Right? Who else does he have? O.B. Trice. Not a West Coast artist, but obviously comes from Eminem's camp. Right? He owns a record label. He's got the Irish mob behind him. And every time Conor has a court case going on, for whatever reason, the witnesses go missing, or they just decide they don't want to testify anymore, or their cars get burnt down, or people show up at their house. This is a definition of a gangster, guys, okay? So we can argue about who's the better fighter between Nick and Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor, but when it comes to outside the cage, Conor McGregor is far more of a gangster than Nick and Nate Diaz ever were, and yet Nick and Nate Diaz come from Gangland, USA, right? Stockton is the biggest, gang-infested, region, not just in California, but all throughout the United States. So, yeah, I would say that, Conor has the right to call them now under, gang BS. He says, always being high Nate makes balloon animals. Conor is connected to the Irish Mafia. That's exactly what I'm saying. Fresh, you missed Kyrie's confrontation with the middle class. No, that was not, first of all, that was not anyone middle class. I can tell you that, okay? I can tell you, I know that the camera did not point out towards their direction, but trust me, Victory, they are nowhere near middle class or a housewife. Constantino says, I got the same feeling with Buckley. Obviously, he's very good fighter, but always acting so hood and ish, it's proper cringe. Maybe Buckley really is hood though, right? I mean, he never claimed to be from a gang, but being hood or, being from a gang are two completely different things, right? Especially people outside of California, right? He says, what, Vic? What's the name of the video? LOL. Connor Siller BJ says Connor can make more happen in Dublin than Nick and Nate Diaz can make happen in Stockton. That's enough said. Yes, that is exactly my point. That is exactly my point. Nobody, unless Nick or Nate Diaz come and press you up or slap you in the face or, you know, confront you one-on-one, okay? Nobody is afraid of Nick or Nate Diaz in Stockton. I promise you, there's no Norteños, no Bloods, no Crips, no Sureños, no Fresno Bulldogs, and then there's even an Indian biker gang out there affiliated with the Hells Angels, the Blue Devil, biker club, right? Which was an Indian gang who recently just got caught a RICO charge. None of them are afraid. Nobody is afraid of Nick or Nate Diaz in that kind of matter unless you get put in an octagon with them. Nobody is afraid of them. He says, was he shadow boxing in front of the sauna? He says, I'm not sure. He'll probably know. I think it's posted yet. He says, okay, fair enough. You might be right. Yeah, so that's what it is, man. Nick or Nate Diaz, here's another thing too, right? I doubt that they actually lived in Stockton, okay? Because I tell you what, all the homies that I know in Stockton, they really live in Stockton. Like they either live in 8th Street or they either live in the north side of Stockton or other parts of Stockton. These guys were living in the white part of Lodi, California, okay? They lived in the outskirts, okay? That's like saying, all right, all the London guys here, right? Have you ever heard of people from Croydon? People from Croydon, people from Essex who claim London, right? They claim London, but they're from Croydon. Now, all the English guys here, all the British guys, all the Irish guys here, is Croydon London? I want you to answer that. Is Croydon London? He says, sorry, this is a dumb question, but is Stockton the same as Compton? No, I think Stockton, here's the thing about Stockton, right? It's racially diverse. Compton used to be a black community. Now it is a Hispanic community. In fact, Compton is overran by Hispanic gangs to the point when Dr. Dre visited his old high school, it didn't look like his old high school, right? He went to high school with guys that had Jerry curls, guys that were, wearing Sassoons or whatever. I mean, all the things that they talk about, right? Now it's a predominantly Hispanic community, and because of the Hispanic domination that they have, there's actually less gang violence, at least within Hispanics. Now it's just Hispanics going at blacks and this and that, but yeah, we can get to that. There was a video the other day that went viral of these Mexican kids that pressed up on these two skinny black kids that came from a Crip neighborhood. They threw up their sets or this and that, and then they banged on them, and they really didn't do anything because it was on camera. But anyways, Stockton is a little bit different. It's a little bit more racially diverse. There's Asian gangs, black gangs, there's Hispanic gangs, and then there's a mixture of them all combined together. So, and plus Stockton is in the north side of California and Compton is in Southern California. So Connor Biller says, Kyrie gave her a tip and said, mind your fucking business, you mad fool of a thing. He says, nah, Croydon is in London, but Essex isn't. Okay, so it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of like Nick and Nate Diaz claiming Essex. I mean, they claim London, but they live in Essex. It's kind of like that, right? And yeah, this whole thing of, Stockton or this and that, they're only claiming Stockton because they have a 209 area code on their phone, right? I could go buy, look, I don't live in Stockton anymore, but I could go buy a phone, at a mall down in Stockton and get a 209 number just as easily, right? But yeah, he says, suburbs type shit. Yes, exactly. That's kind of what, that is the reality of Nick or Nate Diaz in a nutshell. All right, let's get to this right here.
It's nearly a running joke about him missing handshakes. It's happened so often at this stage, and I know I have a smile on my face saying this, but it's a really, really sad situation. The whole thing is very depressing, to be honest with you, and I felt it's only been the story is very interesting from a journalistic point of view, because not only have you got this guy ahead of a coronation moment where, we have DC on camera that week, saying what everybody really feels about Aspinall going into that fight week. Like, if this can be the beginning of a huge reign for him. You know, and look, we've been talking about the talent in the division at the moment. I think most...
Now imagine that's what they were projecting going into that Gone fight. They said, you know what, man? You could go in here and dominate everybody. DC was acting like a little fanboy towards Tom Aspinall, saying to him, man, you know what? Everybody sucks in this division. Everybody sucks. You're going to dominate everyone. Lo and behold, this unfortunate thing happened. It wasn't even the real fight itself that took him out of the business. It was literally a foul. He said DC said that, but Gone boxed his head off. Exactly. Exactly. And not only that, now with these problems that are going on, so it's just tragic overall. Victory says, did you guys see the new footage of DC sparring? Not the clips from Thailand. No. What about it? What about DC sparring?
people thought, like, he gets a win against Cyril Gane, he's going to be defending this belt.
Did he do good? Did he look bad? Or did he look like he can win the heavyweight championship all over again? Let me know.
An awful lot. Obviously, the fights get stopped due to a double eye gouge that he suffered at the hands of Cyril Gane. But there's also...
He said he looks great for how heavy he is. You know what? We need an American at the White House, right? And DC, it doesn't get any more American than that. You know what I mean? DC needs to get up in there with his Captain America shorts and represent for USA one time. Constantino says, yeah, he took someone down I seen. Okay, Connor says, I'm just waiting for Gable to sign to UFC. Yes, he cooks the entire roster. Maybe, right? We have to see what type of levels he has in striking, right? We have yet to see how he can deal with getting punched. That's something we have to look at. He says, dude tried to take him down and DC popped up like a cat. Huh, okay. Are you talking about Gable or are you talking about somebody else that was wrestling with DC? Constantino says, I still think Prime DC slept on. He is definitely a top 10 of all time, in my opinion. Facts, right? I just think he's one of those guys that, you know, the only person that was ever really able to beat him was John Jones, and then Stipe Miocic, who was in his prime at the time, and then after that, it was just downhill from there, and yeah. Even right now, DC is still prime, right? Victory says, I don't know who the guy he was sparring. Okay, so he's a random. DC still wrestles and teaches wrestling every day. The Olympic gold medal never goes away. He wasn't an Olympic gold medalist. Let's not get it twisted. He wasn't Kurt Angle. He wasn't Kyle Dake or Jordan Burroughs or anything like that. He was just an Olympic wrestler who did better than everybody when it came to transitioning to MMA. He says, yeah, Prime DC was a beast. And he did it when he was old. There you go. Yep. And I think those were his prime years of fighting, because obviously when you get older, you tend to grow a little bit of some man muscles, right? He says, or Hulk Hogan.
Been this massive skepticism around Tom. His people believe that he was looking for a way out. People believe that as soon as he's landed at this point where his earning potential is at the maximum. You know, you fight all your life to reach this situation that Tom is in this fight, and now they somehow believe that he is playing this up. He doesn't want to fight again. He's just looking for an excuse not to fight again. I think that's an important part of the story, and I think that skepticism actually makes the situation more depressing. When you go and you see the reality of the situation, you see how everyday life's been affected. Since that 108 days ago was when that's the time frame from when this happened to when that double eye surgery went down. I've seen some questions online in terms of a lot of people are like, well, I thought he was talking about a surgery in mid-January and he might have another one then after that. That was this surgery. It's been pushed back.
So I'll tell you what's interesting about this, right? He has one surgery, and then he had to go in and get another one. Connor Siller says, for some reason, I thought he got gold, but you're right. He placed fourth. Still very impressive. Yes, still very impressive. He says, we need to bully Aspinall. Well, you know what, Constantinos, listen, you can bully him all you want, right? But if the man is not fit to fight, he can't go in there and fight. Now, what makes all of this look really bad is there was one Englishman, okay, by the way, not just an Englishman, also a Polish Englishman, just like Tom Aspinall, by the name of Michael Bisping, who won a middleweight title with a broken freaking eye. And once again, that's a little bit of a reference to Kurt Angle, the real gold medalist, right? Saying, I won a gold medal Olympic with a broken freaking neck. He says, no, I said we need to bully the version. We need, no, I said we need the bully version. Oh, okay. You need bully Tom Aspinall. Okay, I thought you were saying that we need to bully Tom Aspinall. There you go, man. My eyes, are at it again. Sorry. I read that wrong. You're right. You're right. We need bully Tom Aspinall. Well, here's the problem. Okay, the other problem with that is that Tom Aspinall is not a bully by nature. Not only is he not a bully by nature, how can you bully somebody when you are incapacitated? Okay? Look, I'll give you an example, right? I remember I was walking around the street with a group of my homies one time, right? And I'm like, this was when I think I had when I hurt my back from training, right? And then I was like thinking, oh man, listen, my back hurts or this and that. And well, let me just say this, right? I feel like, I'm sort of the, enforcer of the group, right? You know what I mean? Where I feel like if anything was to go down, I'm going to be right there, throwing, the haymakers. Man, I felt so vulnerable. I was like, the homies were like, man, don't worry about it, bro. If you can't, fight, we can, we'll help you or this and that. But I felt so vulnerable, right? So when you got an injury going on, how much of a tough guy can you really feel, right? So you're saying you want the bully Tom Aspinall, but how are we going to get that when realistically he can't bully anybody? He can't even see anyone clearly to bully them. Hey, where you at? Where you at? Oh, let me grab your neck. Oh, no, that's not your neck. That's your arm. Oh, there your arm slipping. Oh, now I can't see you. Right? It's yeah, very, very sad situation for Tom Aspinall, all pun aside, all banter aside. Fresh Melon Juice says, Ramadan Mubarak and Happy Lent. Oh, okay, I didn't know it was Lent. Is it Lent season for Catholics? I didn't know that. Constantino says, I like Tom Aspinall. Constantino says, exactly, no worries. Constantino says he is too much of a nice guy, and we all know being too nice won't get you shit eventually. Correct, right? Some people definitely have to get red-pilled on that reality. Fresh Melon Juice says Tom is a bully. That's why Gon surprised him, because the blitz and bullying didn't work. Typical bully. I mean, look, I think we're giving Tom too much discredit in this particular, aspect, right? You know what it is? Here's the thing, right? There's a big lesson that you have to learn from Tom Aspinall. And this is one of the biggest takeaways that I have of this, right? I remember when I did a Muay Thai tournament, right? The one where, I had won this trophy right here. And I remember on that day, right, when we had to go talk and, do, the pre-fight ambles and this and that. One of the fathers of my training partner comes up to me and he says, by the way, Mexican fella, he says, hey, mijo, why Miguel don't talk like you, man? When he get on the microphone, it's like, he's scared to talk. But when you talk with confidence and this and that. Well, I told him, I said, well, listen, sir, you got to understand, different fighters are different, right? Some are a little more vocal than others. Some are a little more quiet and reserved. By the end of the day, you have to do what you think is feasible for you or what you think is the right thing to do, not what the next person thinks. And the reason for that is because, look, whether you're a nice guy, and by the way, we both ended up winning, the tournament in our weight classes, by the way, right? So that's just, so that kind of tells you that it doesn't matter if you're a talker or you're not a talker. Both of these things can be effective, right? The mind games that you can implement as a talker, right? The type of psychology that you can build upon yourself with the confidence that you can build on. Or you can just be a quiet guy, be stoic, and let the fight play out as itself, right? The way that Jose Aldo, he would never look at his opponents. He would just look at the body and nothing else, not the face or the mouth. Because, hey, listen, all that matters is this body in front of you and what you're going to do with it, not him talking or this and that. Connor Silver says, I blew my knee senior year in my semifinals match and still finished the match. I did not do the finals match, though. Okay, still impressive, by that self. So, Constantino says you can be a talker as long as you walk the talk. I agree, and that's so that's the thing, right? Now Tom Aspinall wants to not be a talker. He wants to be, I just, and early in his career, he's like, well, I don't want to be a UK hype train. I just want to take my time, take it nice and easy, take some matches that I know I could win. I don't want to be above and get ahead of myself. And that's his attitude the whole entire time. Well, now all of these misfortunes happen his way, and guess what happens? People trash him for it. So moral of the story, be yourself no matter what. Because whether people like you or whether people don't like you, eventually they're not going to like you. They're going to find something to not like about you, and that is why you gotta do what you think is best for you, and that is it. He says that's what I like about Ilya. He trash talks people, but at the same time, you can still feel he is humble. Well, you know what? Conor McGregor sort of had something like that very early on, if you notice, right? He was confident, he was brash, but at the same time, there was this humility about him. You could tell that he was very humble in a way where he's loyal to his team, he's loyal to his family, he's loyal to the people that brought him to the dance, and things of that nature, right? But he had this brash side to him that you could appreciate, and then things got darker when he started fighting Khabib, because it's almost like he had to really internalize that dark side in order for him to fight this Dagestani monster in front of him. So Connor Siller says, if you ever make your way down to San Diego, let's do some work, Kyrie. Yeah, you got it, my man. You got it, bro. You got it. If I'm in San Diego, for sure, I will hit you up. He says, yes, I agree. Connor Siller says, the Irish are naturally very cocky. It's in our blood. Bro, let me tell you, man, I completely understand that, right? Because, look, here's the thing. The Irish, right, in comparison to other white people in Europe, right, they were an oppressed class of people. And here's the thing, right? There's a group of people in America that have serious narcissistic issue problems. Do you know what group that is? What group in America has the most serious narcissistic problems? And the answer is the people that were the most oppressed, the people that had serious situations. Look, Deontay Wilder, you know what he said the other day when he was in that face-off at the Daily Mail? He did a face-off Daily Mail boxing with Derek Chisora, right? What did Derek Chisora, what did he say to Derek Chisora say? He said, you know what? We as black people have this, mental health crisis going on. We all need therapy. So there it is. He says the Irish are the best people to have banter with. That's, well, the English and the Scottish, I'm sure, will disagree with that. The Welsh as well. But, let's be honest, right? The pride that the Irish have is the type of pride that the Welsh, Scottish, not so much the Scottish, but the Welsh and the English wish they had.
Eyes keep changing. There's a note in the article about him going through 3 different pairs of prescription glasses because his eyesight is constantly changing. It's a situation like no other. I think it is the most interesting story in the sport, and I was very, very glad to get the access I did, of course. They opened every door for me in the training room.
Well, see, here's the thing, Connor, right? The Irish, the Scousers, and the Scots are all great at banter. So the Scousers are actually like a mixture of Irish, predominantly Irish. If you ask any Scouser, Paddy, Darren Till, who else is a famous Scouser? Tony Bellew. You ask any of these guys to take a DNA test, I guarantee you the majority of their DNA is going to come from Ireland. And with that, also a mixture of Scottish, a mixture of English, but predominantly Irish, right? So Scousers are just like an extended version of Irish people with no real actual Irish nationality in terms of passports or official documents. Because obviously a lot of Scousers have migrated from Ireland, right? This is like a common thing that you'll hear from them say, that they came from Ireland and then they moved to Liverpool. And yeah, Fresh Melon Juice says, if you ever make your way to 100 Colonial Farm Road in Langley, Virginia, let's get some, what the heck? So Langley Road. Wait a minute. That is a CIA training facility. Fresh melon juice. Huh. That's a CIA training facility. Are you inviting? Okay, I gotcha. My man's inviting me to a CIA facility. He's inviting me to a CIA, bro. That is where the CIA does their basic training. But yeah, anyways, you know, yeah. Why would you? I thought you were already in the service. I thought you already graduated from the farm, right? Like you should be out there in the field right now. You know, yeah, you know, all right, let's get back to this video right here. He's probably a head instructor. The head instructor of what particular class, though, right? Is he an instructor for interrogation? Is he an instructor for hand-to-hand, you know, combat? Is he an instructor for foreign weapons, you know, firearms training, right? Yeah, they do offer foreign weapons, firearms training in the military. So any military guys, U.S. military guys that are, you know, that are listening to this right now, yeah, go and take those classes if they're available to you. He says, you're green. You have to start as a beginner. Well, there it is, man. You know, we'll see if I pass the polygraph.
Obviously, I went to the hospital with Tom in Manchester. And yeah, I mean, I think my goal going into this was to tell a human interest story about the heavyweight champion of the world being rendered pretty much obsolete in the sport that he's been doing since he's 6 years old. This is not just Tom's sport; it's his life. It's his.
Oh, Connor says, have you taken a DNA test, brother? No, because well, from my father's side, I already know I'm pure Arab, right? But you know, the other Pacific Islander side, I may have other, you know, genetic factors in there that I may not know about. Maybe, you know, other you know, other types of Asians, maybe other types of Europeans, because you know the Philippines was full of you know, different types of foreign entities that were out there. So you never know, right? But I would be interested to see what comes up with that. But I just know that on my father's side, it is you know, nothing but Arab, and you know, having a name like Abu El-Kheer, it doesn't get any more Arab than that. He says maybe Jewish. Yeah, well, there you go, right? Maybe I do. Well, here's the thing, right? When you mean Jewish, what do you mean? Do you mean like Eastern European, or do you mean Sephardic Jews? Which, I mean, Sephardic, if you think about it, look, Ariel Hawani is a Sephardic Jew, right? Meaning that he's an Arab Jew. His parents were from Egypt. Speaking of Egypt, I have a cousin in Egypt who looks exactly like Ariel Hawani. You guys want me to show him? Hit the one button right now if you want me to show you a picture of my cousin in Egypt who looks dead on like Ariel Hawani. Hit the one right now. I'll show you his picture right now. He looks dead on like Ariel Hawani. Okay. By the way, Ariel Hawani is Egyptian, but he's Jewish, and obviously I come from in, you know, a Muslim family. Okay, check this out. Amin Abu El-Kheer. This is my cousin right here. Okay. Now, does he look like Ariel Hawani? And just to show you, okay, this is, yes, we same last name, but obviously we all spell it differently. He says, my dad's Lebanese too. We know how they look. That's literally Ariel. That's my cousin. Okay, Amin Abu El-Kheer, okay, from Egypt, okay? So, I can't believe it, bro. Yo, what if I'm related to Ariel Hawani? He says, wow, the same, wow, same like Ariel. He says both Jewish, you guess. Both, Uzman says both Jewish, you guess. Yeah, see, look. Once again, that is my cousin in Egypt, Amin Ahmed Salma Abu El-Kheer, right? Also known as Ariel Hawani. You know what, man? I want to bring him in to talk with you guys, but then he'll just be shocked, like, huh? Who is this Ariel Hawani? Who is this Jewish man that you say looks like me? He says he looks like every Mossad agent I've ever seen. That's an Egyptian Arab man. You know what I mean? That's not somebody who's Jewish or this, and he just happens to look like Ariel Hawani. The only difference is Ariel Hawani has, you know, a bit of a buzz cut going on. He says, nah, I definitely see it though. See what I'm saying? Like, you know, when I was like, wait, yo, you know what? You look like this journalist, you know, that I know. He says, oh, is he Arab man? You know, well, yeah, he's Arab. You know, he's from Egypt, you know, like our family, but, you know, he's a Jew. Yeah, he's look like us, but he's Jewish. Yes. So there it is. He says, yeah, he's a darker version of Ariel. Him and Ariel are actually the same, you know, skin tone, right? You know, yeah, very similar skin tone. You know, he's way lighter than me. So, you know, Amin Abu El-Kheer. So yeah, man. Yeah, just wanted to show that. He says, yeah, I hope he doesn't have the same athleticism as Ariel. Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, I mean, he plays soccer here and there, but yeah, he says, oh yeah, he looked darker in that picture. Maybe it's just the light that I have, right? But yeah, if you look, yeah, you know, I just think that the lighting that he was at is a little bit darker. But if you look right here, I mean, this is, like, if I showed you just this, you would think, okay, that's Ariel Hawani. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, yeah. But, okay, yeah, back to this right here on Inside Tom Aspinall's Nightmare.
His outlet, and it's all been taken away from him. And I think with a large help from Shaheen Al-Shadi, it must be said, we got there in the end.
It was a fantastic piece, super well written, and obviously very insightful into, you know, due to the access that you had to Tom and his team. You can check that out right now on unground.com. I want to talk about the skepticism. You touched on the skepticism and the people out there who are doubting it, whether it be.
He says Muslim Ariel versus Jew Ariel, book it, Dana. Yo, listen, I gotta bring him in. You know what? Here's the thing, though, man. He would not understand any of the banter that we talk about in the MMA world, right? He would not understand stuff about, you know, Nina drama, you know, Sean Strickland saying racist things, Israel Adesanya messing around with his dog. Like, he would find all of this, you know, really reprehensible. Now, if we have, let's say, a political discussion in particular, like the things that are going on in the Middle East, for sure, I'm going to bring him in on those conversations, but it would be really awkward to bring him in for an MMA conversation. Like, what? Who is this Nina Drama? Who is this haram woman? Who is this? Who is this fat Jewish guy named MMA Guru from England? Who is this guy, right? He wouldn't know any of these people, right? You guys would just be fascinated by him because he looks like Ariel Hawani. You guys, you would be so obsessed with him just because he looks like Ariel Hawani. You guys would troll him because he looks like Ariel Hawani. But yeah, man, he says book it on the Whitehouse card. He says, why is John Jones getting excited from having that small man on his lap? Yes. Yeah, he wouldn't understand it. He was like, what? What? Hezbollah. Okay, he'll know who Hezbollah is, right? Because Hezbollah, you don't have to be an MMA fan, but everybody in the Arab world knows who Hezbollah is, right? You know, he's sort of like a Muslim, you know, social media influencer at this point, right? So he would know him. But yeah, he says, I'd love to know your cousin's opinion on Israel. Well, I mean, like most Arabs, they all hate Israel, right? I mean, let's just be honest about that. You know, and I think that he would find it even more reprehensible that I'm comparing him to a Jewish man who's a journalist that happens to be a staunch supporter of Israel, right? So yeah, I think he would be, very disgusted, but I think he would also kind of find it funny that this guy looks like him, you know. But by the end of the day, remember, Ariel Hawani is Egyptian, okay? He is an Arab ethnically. He just happens to be, you know, of a certain persuasion in terms of religion. Connor Sillers says John and Hezbollah would be like Mr. Hand's video. He says there are Lebanese Jews too. Well, there you go, right? There you go. Yeah. And that's also another part of Ariel Hawani's family is Lebanese Jews, right? So Ariel Hawani is very much deep into the Arab world, except that he is a minority in the Arab world. If you think about it, right? Ariel Hawani is a minority in the Arab world. Yeah. He says, I'm Christian Lebanese. Lots of people don't know that there are some non-Muslim Arabs. Well, Lebanon is more of a Christian-dominated country. Is it not? I think it's more of a Christian-dominated country than it is a Muslim country. Yes, there's a strong Sunni Muslim presence. There's a big Shia Muslim presence in Lebanon, but more so, it is a Christian Arab country. More importantly, to really be technically correct about it. So, all right. Let's hear a little bit more on this, and then before I go, I'm going to get into the White House card and the possibilities of that. He says there used to be more Christians too, though. Okay, yes.
The people who are saying in the fight itself he was looking for a way out, or the people that have come out of the woodwork now to kind of point to what they feel are inaccuracies with what Tom has said and what's going on and the surgery itself and all this stuff. You made an interesting point that I kind of agree with in terms of it becoming more depressing. If I'm Tom Aspinall and I'm sitting there and my only mission is to get back so that I can be the champion of the world and entertain the fan base, and all I'm met with is people kind of like shitting down my neck for no apparent reason because they have these tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, I can't imagine it's a helpful motivator. I can't imagine it's the type of thing that Tom's like, I can't wait to go back and prove all my supporters right while he's looking at all these people just shitting on him. That's just my own aside. My question to you is, what's your take on the skepticism that we've seen in the moment since, whether it be in regard to the specific details that you were able to, reveal in the piece, as well as the other kind of like general sentiment toward Tom since this has all happened?
I think largely, it's been very well received. But of course, as I said, the skepticism is a part of this story. I didn't want to shy away from it. I have that written into the story throughout it. It's kind of a refrain from the skeptics and whatnot. And I had no doubt that when this came out that they would be there, that this would happen. The skepticism I'm seeing largely is about the surgery itself. I've seen multiple people have sent me doctors, people who are claiming to be doctors speaking about this. I guess when you listen to these doctors speak about it, they're ophthalmologists.
Have you been wrongfully fired from your job? Wrongful termination is not right. You deserve more than just scraping by on.
They're probably correct in terms of saying if he had LASIK, this would not make sense. But he didn't have LASIK surgery. LASIK surgery is a cosmetic surgery. He had a medical procedure. The idea.
Okay, so that's the conspiracy behind all of this, right? It was LASIK versus cosmetic surgery. So that is the skepticism that a lot of people have. And that other person that was talking to Pete Carroll right there, he made a good point. With all of these things going on, wouldn't Tom Aspinall want to prove people wrong, right? But then again, there's something going on here. Maybe the other conspiracy is that he's just waiting for Cyril Gane to book a fight so that he can lose, and then he can jump right back in there to a much easier matchup that was not harder for him in a way that it was difficult to take on Cyril Gane. Once again, we never know, but if everything checks out to its face value statement, the official story, right? Even Dana White is sort of mocking the whole entire thing, sort of dismissing the reality of it, then we are looking at a really tragic situation. The type of situation that you saw with old school fighter TJ Grant. If you guys remember, TJ Grant was supposed to fight for the 155 belt against Benson Henderson, and then somewhere down the line he got injured and never came back. Now he's living as a lumberjack in Canada, talking to his friends about, well, you know what, I could have been a title challenger. Zabit is another example of that. It wasn't an injury, it was because he wanted to try a different career. Amagov, the original Khamzat, the Chechnyan guy who was 7-0 before he left the UFC, went on to become an Islamic scholar. right? A sheikh, an imam at a mosque, at a local mosque at his village in Chechnya, and lived happily ever after, never thought about MMA or the glory of championship, the glory of UFC championship glory, and what comes with that, right? Never thought about it, just left it in the back, and went on to live his life doing other things. Tom Aspinall could be facing that right now, so that's a real serious situation right there. And yeah, if you guys want to see the rest of that video, check out the Ariel Helwani show. Obviously, featured my cousin here who looked like Ariel Helwani to sort of segue into that. It is Inside Tom Aspinall's Nightmare. Let me show you the title of this right here so you guys can see it for yourself, the full entirety of that video. Because once you see the full entirety of that video, you will be convinced that not only will Tom Aspinall not fight at the White House, not only will Tom Aspinall be stripped of his title, but he may never fight again. Fresh Melon Juice says, a famous comedian told a story about the village in America fighting over the most silly thing, while nobody is more alike than them. Okay, real interesting. I wonder what you mean by that. He says, why does this guy sound like Craig Jones, though? Which one sounds like Craig Jones? Are you talking about one of the people that was talking to P.T. Carroll there? Fresh Melon Juice says, will the Russian newsman talk about the White House card? Yes, we will talk about UFC Whitehouse now. Okay, because right now, they seem to not want to bring the Russians in the White House for whatever reason. Maybe the reason is because of diplomacy issues. Maybe because they want us to stop fighting the Ukrainians, these war criminals. And yet they don't want us to fight at the White House because we will destroy all these puny Americans. Yeah. He says nothing worse that could have or should have. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He says a lot of middleweights should be thanking the gods that Abdul Rashid Sadulayev never got into MMA. Sadulayev, I believe, is a heavyweight, right? In fact, him and Gable Stevenson would probably be a good heavyweight matchup in MMA, you know, but you never know, right? So, okay, with the White House card, let's talk about the White House card just a little bit before I head out, okay? So the White House card, they're talking about Alex Pereira possibly against Cyril Gane. Now, why would that be a good matchup? Well, because number one, they need to revamp the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is in shambles right now, and as a result of those shambles, they have to create a new type of contenders, a new type of fighters, bring different fighters into that division. Now, here's another thing. They want to put John Jones versus Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight championship. How is John Jones going to go back to 205? How is that possible? What will he do? Is he just going to have to take Ozempic? Who knows? He says he competed at 204. He can make middleweight. Okay. This is Sadulayev you were talking about. Okay, Fresh Melon Juice said you should always be the Russian newsman online and in real life. No. You know, how about no? You know what I mean? Like, I like having an American accent. People actually understand what I'm saying. And yeah, man, there's nothing better than having an American accent. At one point in my life, I wish that I was a British Arab like Prince Nassim, because I love Prince Nassim so much, and I loved the fact that he mixed being an Arab guy and having this, you know, UK Sheffield swag to him, right? But yeah, man, an American accent is the best accent because everyone understands you. He said he also competed at 86 kg. So 86 kg to pounds is 189. Wow. Okay. So all right, I see why. I see why you would put Sadulayev in that category. That makes sense. So yeah, so that's what they have going on so far at the White House, right? Let's recap for the White House real quick, right? It could either be John Jones versus Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight championship. How is John Jones going to do that? Take Ozempic to go back down to 205? Who knows? Or they could have Cyril Gane versus John Jones for the heavyweight division, because they had to do something for the heavyweight division because Tom Aspinall is up out of here. Or maybe they'll bring Francis Ngannou in. Who knows? There's just so much matchups that they have going on right now. And as far as what I've been told, Dana White or what I've learned through Dana White's press conference in the last Zuffa boxing card, Dana White is in Washington, D.C., talking to the president about how they're going to get these fights going and how they're going to get it started. So, yeah, which is like 190, I believe. Okay, so that is in reference to Sajalayev. All right, well, guys, listen. With that in mind, that is all that I have for this one right now. Do not forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Inshallah. He said, peace, brother. Hey, listen, check out this video that I did 3 months ago where I said that Tom Aspinall was going to get stripped. Check this out. I need you to keep in mind, this video was
Francis
done 3
Ngannou
months.
is the
I need you to keep in mind, this video was done 3 months ago. He says, peace, brother, have a good one. So we're going to leave off the live stream with this video, okay? Check this out. This is 3 months ago. Keep in mind, 3 months ago.
linear, undisputed. Francis Ngannou is the linear, undisputed heavyweight champion of MMA, regardless of whether he's in the UFC or not. However, Tom Aspinall is about to get stripped off of his title, and guess what? We're going to talk about all of that and the details regarding that particular matter. Okay, so first of all, how did we even get here in the first place? Okay, how did we get here? Well, first off, before we continue on, I'd like you to hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know what part of the world you are from. Hit the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this potential of Tom Aspinall getting stripped. And let me tell you how we got here. So as I mentioned, the Cyril Gane and the Tom Aspinall fight happened in a very lackluster manner. There was no definitive result. It was a no contest. He got his eyes poked out. As I told you, Francis Ngannou is the lineal heavyweight champion of the world right now, regardless of John Jones. How did we even get here? So obviously, Francis Ngannou, in his last UFC fight, which was against Cyril Gane, who, by the way, seems to be popping up in every single match, every single story that is involving the UFC's linear. So he beats him. By the way, storyline, the fact that they were former teammates, on top of the fact that it was Francis Ngannou's last contract, and he was trying to fight it out in order to get his freedom and in order to get the matchups that you have seen him with the likes of Anthony Joshua and the likes of Tyson Fury, regardless of their result. Then in came John Jones, because guess what? John Jones had to go in there and fight Cyril Gane. Well, now he beat Cyril Gane, made it look very convincing. Now we have a real heavyweight champion of the world. What does he do in the process? What does he do with that? He goes and fights one more name, and that name of Stipe Miocic. All the while, all of this is going on. Guess what is happening? Okay, he decides Tom Aspinall was defending as the interim heavyweight champion of the world, not the undisputed, but the interim heavyweight champion of the world. So what happens? John Jones beats Cyril Gane, makes it look easy, takes him down, right? Had a little bit of a striking fest going on, takes him down, chokes him out, to the disbelief of Cyril Gane. But what happens with Cyril Gane in the process? Cyril Gane is still a big star in the UFC. What is indicative of that? Well, take a look at all the Netflix appearances that he's had. The Cage, and then on top of that, he did one movie on Netflix where he played a former UFC, well, not UFC fighter, but just a pro MMA fighter in France that unalived someone, and as a result, he had to go help the family of which he unalived because he had some gang ties going on in Marseille. A crazy story. Nonetheless, one of those types of movies, at least on the French side, that really put Cyril Gane over. So what happens after that? Well, I'll tell you what happens after that. okay, just before the Cyril Gane and Aspinall fight, John Jones gets stripped of the title while he was in Thailand and while UFC Azerbaijan was going on. So as he was living in okay, hanging out with the boys, okay, making history with the first Muay Thai and MMA, guess what happens? They strip him and they decided in August in an Abu Dhabi card, okay, that we're just going to have these guys fight it out and maybe get Tom Aspinall an official undisputed defense under his belt. Lo and behold, what happens? Lackluster and gets eye poked. And now, here's the story, the real kicker of all of this. Best life, while we talk about John Jones being the last heavyweight champion before Tom Aspinall, while John Jones really made it look easy against Tom Aspinall, and while we were set to see Francis Ngannou and John Jones at some point, all of a sudden, Francis Ngannou leaves after Cyril Gane, and then next, now we have Cyril Gane once again back in. Why am I so adamant that they are going to strip Tom Aspinall of this title? Well, let's get a round of applause first before I go into that. All right, so here it goes. The reason why they're going to strip him of the title, it's really this simple. Number one, he doesn't want to fight Cyril Gane anymore. He feels that it is detrimental to his career, and perhaps he may eye poke him again. Could it be the possibility that he is a bad matchup for Tom Aspinall? Absolutely. Let's take that into high consideration. However, Tom Aspinall is taking a business decision. This is something a lot of you guys have to understand. He is taking a business decision. However, while taking that business decision, it may not be favorable towards him because for whatever reason, he may have ruined the plans of people behind the scenes. And as all right, guys, we're going on to the bonus round. Stay tuned. Okay, going into the bonus round.
All right, y'all. For those of you that are tapped in, you're now entering the bonus round of the stream. So yeah, I just wanted to pause for a little bit. Get the stream going and talk about a whole bunch of random things. You know what I mean? Because hey, listen, sometimes when we talk about MMA, to the topic of fighting and nothing else, right? There's nothing else outside of that, those conversations. It's just nothing but fighting. And sometimes there's aspects of politics too. And I feel like a lot of people hate it when you talk about politics and MMA at the same time. And I don't understand why. I don't get it. I don't get why people don't like it. But I think it comes from this culture of just shut up and